What's going on, everybody? This is Alex Harshman, Wholesale to Freedom. Today we're going to be talking about Turo, the side hustle that you can use to pay for your cars, to bring in passive income, or just to make it your primary business model. Whatever it may be, I want to go over my experiences so far. So let's dive in. So real briefly, for those who don't know, let's talk about what Turo is. Turo is a platform where you can rent out your cars, similar to Airbnb for houses, but it's for cars. You can rent your cars out. Guests take the cars on a trip. They bring the cars back, and then they rate your trip based on how the ride was, everything, and you rate them based on how they were as a guest. They have a rating system that if you get so many good ratings, you become an all-star host, and your stuff gets promoted a little bit more. Now that's Turo in a nutshell. How does Turo work? Well, what you do is you decide what car, if you have multiple cars that you want to list on the platform, and then from there it branches out into different protection plans that you can get based off what you want to have for protection and coverage. They have a blanket coverage of $750,000 liability coverage, but what that means for you is pretty much absolutely nothing because it depends on the plan that you have. They have a 60-40 plan, which is you get 60% of the profits. They get 40%, but it has the most coverage you can get. I don't believe there's a deductible at the time of this video for any claims, and you can claim things like scratches, dents, small things that you normally wouldn't be able to claim. For the 70 plan, there's a 70-30 plan where I think it goes up to a $250 deductible, which they do not cover the wear and tear, the small scratches, things like that. But they do cover the major repairs. If they get in an accident, things like that, you just pay the $250 deductible. And it goes all the way up to 75, 80, 85. They did a little incentive this year where you get an extra 5% on top of your protection plan, so the 85 is actually 90, so on and so forth. So I'm on the 85 plan on all my cars, and the 85 plan states that you have to pay a $2,500 deductible in the event something happens. Even if there's a total loss as far as the car's completely totaled, does not matter. You're going to pay a $2,500 deductible on top of the actual cash value that you're going to get for the car. So now we kind of know what Turo is, how it works. Let's talk about my experiences so far. I originally started this as a side hustle for one of my vehicles because I didn't drive it much at the time. And Turo had an incentive going on right when I signed up to where if you added a car, you could get up to $2,000 per car. And their advertising made it sound like this thing where if you just rented your car out for the rest of the year, you would get this $2,000 at the end of the year. Well, for me, that was 10% of the payment, almost 15% of the payment of the total payoff for the new car that I purchased just for Turo to rent out as a side business. And I later found out that you can make up to $2,000, but it's based off how much revenue you made throughout the year. So if you're only making like $2,000 for 6 months, you're only going to get like $10 extra in bonus credits. You have to be making $10,000 plus in order to hit that $2,000 bonus. Now you wouldn't be able to know that unless you read the fine print on the multiple pages over. So it says read more details, and then there's more details on that. So you have to click through several pages just to understand that. But I didn't know that till after I bought my car, which is my mistake. I'll go ahead and say that up front. So let's talk about my experiences with renting my cars out. First of all, I have a 2017 Volkswagen Jetta that I bought as a limited buyback. Basically, the manufacturer bought it from the customer who purchased it off the lot because it had a failed transmission. They fixed the transmission and put it, they bought it back from the customer strictly for satisfaction because that's what Volkswagen does. They really take care of their customers. And for that reason, I got the car at a steal of a deal. It was 2018 when I bought it, and it was a 2017 with 1,000 miles, and I got it for $8,500 at a dealer auction. The car was easily worth about 20 grand at that time. Right now, I could probably sell it for 15,000. But for Turo, for me, that it made sense because I didn't have any kind of payment on the car. It was already paid off, and I could probably make that amount in less than 1 year to make up for the purchase price of the car. So for Turo, it sounded like a great and easy deal, so for me it made sense. After listing that car for a couple of months, I realized through the terms and conditions, because they don't tell you this, that they do not cover a limited buyback car. So if my car were to get in an accident, there's a potential that they would not cover it. Actually, on the terms and conditions, it states that they will not allow you to list the car if it was a lemon buyback, which on a title search, or as soon as you type in the VIN number of the car, you're going to be able to see that right away. And as a matter of fact, I went to I don't know if it was Priceline or CarMax, or maybe it was even Carvana. I think it was Carvana. I actually, this year, I went to check to see how much they would give me for the car, because I thought about just selling it. And since I had it for a steal of a deal, I figured going through a dealer would be easier, and they would still probably make what I got back. Upon checking it through Carvana, they noticed that the car had a branded title because it was a lemon buyback. So immediately, like within 30 seconds, they were able to identify that this was a lemon buyback car. So that kind of makes me wonder, if Turo is just not purposely checking, so that way they can collect as much revenue from their hosts that are on the trips with a lemon buyback car, and then when it comes time to make a claim, they don't have to cover it. So not only are they making money off of you on the trips, but then they don't have to worry about covering you, so they kind of get a double dip there with no risk. Because it's in the terms and conditions, they're not going to cover it. Luckily, my car didn't get any kind of accidents or anything, the Volkswagen Jetta, but that's a different story for my next car, which was the 2015 BMW 320i that I purchased strictly for Turo. My thought process on this, and it was more of an impulse buy. Again, I will admit that because they had that incentive going on with Turo, and I wouldn't mind driving a BMW and having somebody else make the payments for me, even if it was just covering the payments monthly. So I bought that car strictly for that reason, and I had a couple trips. I had three trips. The third trip, I actually was out of town on vacation seeing my brother, and my guest got a flat tire. Well, it turns out there was a nail in the tire. My tires on the car were actually pretty old. So that was my mistake once again. When I bought the car, I didn't really look at it that well. The tires were pretty old, and so they had a valve issue on the tires, and also on top of that, it had a nail in the tire. So luckily, the guest covered the tire repair costs because he was pretty awesome. But then my next trip happened, which is actually what I'm going through right at this exact moment, and I'll have a video separately for this. My BMW, as of this weekend, so today's Monday, my BMW on Saturday got in an accident. The lady who rented it out was apparently drunk or intoxicated or some kind of drugs, and she took my car and wrecked it, that night. So she drove it off into a ditch, and my car got towed to the nearest auto body shop. So because I'm on the 90 plan, like I said, it will be a $2,500 deductible, and if it's under that $2,500, basically I have to pay for it myself. Even though she was at fault and maybe even under the influence, I still have to pay that deductible if I go through Turo. And on top of that, Turo takes a deductible from the guest, so that way, I don't know why they do it, but it doesn't really make sense to me because they take a deductible from the guest for damaging my car, but I don't see that deductible. They get to keep that deductible and pocket it. So, from my understanding, doesn't make sense to me as a business model. I don't think, just like the Volkswagen Jetta issue where they should check to see if it's a lemon buyback to prevent you from listing it at all so that thing doesn't happen. It just seems kind of like a cash grab opportunity. So right now I'm going to be finding out later on today how much damage is actually done to my car. I'm hoping that the car is totaled because I absolutely hate that car. It turns out I hate BMWs. They're very expensive to repair, so if you're thinking about get one, don't get one unless you just are balling like crazy and you have all the cash in the world. It's the worst investment you can make. So you're probably wondering, because I made a video on Turo before about how it would be a good passive income, and then that brings me to my next subject. Who is Turo for? Because it sounds like it's not for you, Alex, and you're absolutely right. I think they have a terrible business model. They don't really take care of the hosts. You have it's in favor of the host and the guests, right? You have to have one or the other. You can't be it's in favor of the guest and the host. Turo is a platform that is more in favor of the guest, in my opinion. And that's because, just like in real estate, when you're renting out properties, you have to go to a landlord-friendly state, because if not, the tenants can walk all over you and the state will allow it. It's the same thing with Turo. Basically, my driver, or my guest rather, if I decide to dispute it with them directly, can say, hey, look, I'm not paying for it. I don't know what to tell you, or I don't have the money. Obviously, if they don't take care of themselves, they probably don't take care of their finances. And, I get nothing from that. I get no support, nothing. I mean, I'm sure I could file a suit, anything like that, but then, you got to run into the legal fees, and is it really worth it at that point? So, and for that reason, in my opinion, Turo is more in favor of the guests. And also on top of that, yes, I know what you're saying, but Alex, you picked that high deductible plan. But even in insurance with the deductibles, if the other person's at fault, their insurance is going to cover it. You don't have to pay deductible on that, because that makes sense. If the other person's at fault, they got to pay for it. That just makes sense. Not you got to pay for somebody else's mistakes and then they get to keep the mistake money that they collect from the person that made the mistake. That just doesn't make sense. And so here's my opinion on Turo in general and as a business. Turo to me is kind of like a platform that got created. They didn't really know how well it was going to do. It gained a tremendous amount of traction, became wildly successful, and along the way, they really just did not have the systems and the thought process in place to create a successful or in my opinion, a good business. Of course, I'm looking at it as a moral standpoint, like what's wrong and what's right. They're probably looking at it as like, hey, how can we make the most money, because this is a business, and not really care about anything else. So in that aspect, I get it. It is a business. They got to make money, but they certainly got that part down. I mean, they're double dipping on so many sides. So that's my opinion. Who is Turo for? I kind of brought it up before, but if you're looking to make some passive income, you got a car that's just sitting on the driveway, definitely look into Turo. Think about maybe listing it, but do it with caution. And honestly, I don't think at this point, after going through this experience thus far, it's not worth it to get the higher return, because if there's any kind of damage whatsoever, you're going to lose out on that money. So if you have to literally be making thousands of dollars a month to make it worth the higher plan, and you have to know if the area you're in is a high risk area. I've had over 10 trips so far on my cars, and this is the first major accident that I've had. And that's not a very good percentage. That's like 10% of my trips are resulting into a crash. So that's, I don't think, in my opinion, a very good percentage. Should be like 1 to 3% in my opinion. But I could be wrong. Again, this is not a primary business for me. This is more of a side hustle. Knowing what I know now, I would highly recommend going on the lower plan, the 60-40 or the 70-30, just because it just makes sense. You don't know what your guest is going to do. And if you're not making thousands of dollars a month, the return's really not going to be worth it versus the risk, in my opinion. And the last thing I'm going to mention about this is, not only is it just like really not in favor of the host, but if you got to get in contact with Turo for whatever reason, it is a nightmare trying to get a phone number to get a hold of them. And then they got several departments that handle like each individual problem. So they got a trust and security department, a roadside assistance, a claims department, a trip department, like a host department, a guest department. Like they got all these different departments, and then you call one number, they transfer you to another number. They say, okay, well, I got this information, I'm going to transfer to this person. And last night I got a phone call saying, hey, we investigated, we found out this is what's going on. You're going to get a call from claims department tomorrow. I said, okay, great. And then I got 4 emails. 2 of them saying the same thing: send us a set of photos of the damage, take a tape measure, hold it up to the car, take pictures of everything that's damaged. That way we can cover you. If you don't do it in 24 hours, you're not covered. And it's just like not very user friendly. And then they send you an email that's like a paragraph this long and this narrow. So it's not user friendly at all, in my opinion. It's just not user friendly. So, moral of the story: take Turo with a grain of salt, and tread with caution. Don't use the higher tier plans unless you're just balling out and you don't care about spending $2,500 on a car. So, I hope that was helpful. If you've had a similar experience, or if you have any comments down below that you want to mention, anything that you want to ask me about on Turo, comment them down below. If you found this video helpful, smash that thumbs up. Subscribe down below as well. That way you get notified of any real estate, Turo, side hustle, income things, business related things. And that way you get notified of all those things when I post them. Thank you all so much for watching, and you all have a beautiful day.